My name is Sun Tzu. You may know my name, but you do not know my mind. Westerners read my scrolls as philosophy. They are wrong. These are system specifications. I lived in an era of total system collapse, the warring states. To survive, I had to stop seeing people and start seeing energy flow. I had to stop seeing walls and start seeing vector constraints. The 36 stratagems are not tricks. They are zero-day exploits targeting the fundamental bugs in the human operating system. You are about to witness the first module, dominance expansion. When you have the resources, when you hold the keys, how do you harvest the system without a single wasted byte of energy? Let's begin the audit. The ultimate concealment is performed in broad daylight. A defense system is strongest when facing anomalies and weakest when facing the commonplace. My task is to encode my lethality into the most tedious background data you process every day. When the frequency and characteristics of a signal, offensive intent, perfectly overlap with noise, routine operations, the anomaly detector fails. This is a game of thresholds. General Hirobi conducted a cognitive saturation attack on the northern bank of the Yangtze River. Massive troop deployments, loud maneuvers and drills repeated 100 times. Initially, the Chen Dynasty defenses were on full alert, but with every repetition, the enemy commander's brain performed a downgrade on the threat level. Data shows that when a startling signal repeats without consequence, the human brain undergoes sensory adaptation. On the day of the actual invasion, the sentries saw shadows in the mist, and the processors returned a single result, consistent with routine, no action required. In that 1 second of cognitive lag, I had already crossed the river. The most successful modern deceiving the heavens is called terms of service. Tech giants hide predatory data harvesting code within 20,000 words of legal jargon. They know you won't read it. They know you will click agree out of repetition and impatience. You surrender your soul in broad daylight because they package the harvest as a mundane daily operation. If you think something is free, you are the sea being deceived. Recursive thinking. Ask yourself, how many harvesting commands are hidden within the lifestyle patterns you take for granted every day? Habit is the assassin's favorite camouflage. Resisting force is foolish. Manipulating the destination of that force is art. When a powerful system, Wei, is at full output attacking Zhao, a resource void inevitably opens within its interior. I do not patch the point of your attack. I strike your power center directly. When a system is running a high-energy process and suddenly receives a high-priority interrupt, the system generates massive instability and resource depletion during the context switch. Pang Huan's Wei Wu, Wei warriors were the strongest hardware of the warring states, but I did not collide with them. I projected my forces directly onto Daliang, the capital and the root directory of Wei. This was a priority injection aimed at Pang Huan. The king of Wei's cry for help was a command that could not be refused. Pang Huan was forced to retreat his exhausted army over a massive distance in record time. During this forced rerouting, the army's defensive matrix fractured due to physical inertia. I waited at Guilin, not for a battle, but for the moment of system collapse. Striking what the enemy must save is how you seize their scheduler. When a corporation aggressively attacks a new market, its capital chain is stretched thin. A competitor won't fight them in that new market. They will launch a price war in the aggressor's cash cow market instead. To protect its lifeline, the corporation is forced to withdraw resources from the front line to defend its base. You don't need to outperform their new product, you only need to sever their power line. Recursive thinking. When facing pressure, do not think about how to resist. Think, where is the opponent's kill switch? The moment your hand touches that switch, the pressure vanishes. Execution should never create a liability. If you can exploit the trust logic vulnerability within the opponent's system to make them purge their own core components, you achieve a zero-cost victory. I am not an assassin. I am an administrator modifying permissions. By intercepting and modifying communication data between two trusted nodes, malicious commands are injected to induce a system self-destruct. Cao Cao's execution of his naval commanders Kai and Zhang was the most expensive command injection in history. Cao Cao's defense system had a bug, paranoia. Zhou Yu utilized an unsecured communication protocol, the diplomat Jiang Gan, to transmit a set of forged treason parameters. Cao Cao processed this data without multi-factor authentication. Based on this corrupted data, he executed his cleanup routine, wiping out his only naval driver programs. The knife Zhou Yu borrowed was the death warrant Cao Cao signed himself. Modern titans use regulators as their borrowed knife to eliminate competitors. They lobby for extremely rigorous, complex industry standards. These standards are mere budget overhead for the titans, but for emerging rivals, they are a guillotine. Titans don't need to build better tech, they only need to make competition illegal. The regulatory body becomes the sharpest knife they ever borrowed. When you receive information that triggers anger or fear, stop. Think, who wanted you to receive this? Is the decision you are about to make your own logic, or is it code injected by someone else? Average commanders seek motion because motion mimics progress, but I view strategy through the lens of power consumption. Every march, every decision, every deployment drains the system's total energy. My goal is not to defeat you, but to watch your system collapse from overcomputation before we even meet. I wait at your logic's end, watching you burn out. When a system, an army or a corporation, overoperates, it generates massive entropy, fatigue, resource depletion, and administrative chaos. When the heat exceeds the critical threshold, the system automatically downclocks or crashes. Xiang Yu was the most powerful single-core CPU in history. His offensive frequency was unmatched. Liu Bang at Chenggao did only one thing: reject connection. Xiang Yu challenged, he did not respond. Xiang Yu insulted, he remained silent. Xiang Yu led tens of thousands of elites back and forth under the scorching sun. Every mobilization was merely idle polling. Data shows that the energy consumption of a high-alert attack state is far higher than a sleep state. The moment Xiang Yu's system displayed low battery and prepared to withdraw for a recharge, Liu Bang pressed the execution key. Liu Bang didn't win through raw power. He won because he had 30% more reserve battery than Xiang Yu. Apple rarely rushes into an unrefined market. They wait. They watch as Meta and Google burn billions to educate the market, trip over supply chain hurdles, and endure low yields. When the pioneers have pushed market entropy to its peak, exhausted, overspent, and riddled with errors, Apple enters with a refined ecosystem. This isn't being late, it is precise power management. Diligence is a low-level tactic. If your busyness produces no effective output, you are simply self-destructing your own hardware. When a system suffers a core collapse, it is the optimal time for the redistribution of wealth. You don't need to demolish the house, you only need to wait for the beams to crack and extract the most valuable memory modules. Coldness is a mandatory plug-in for an architect. When a system falls into a deadlock or catastrophic recovery mode, defensive code is temporarily disabled. This is a zero resistance window for extracting data or assets. The Qin Empire's conquest was most successful not on the battlefield but during Zhao's great earthquake and famine. When Zhao's administrative system was fully occupied with disaster recovery, core process collapse, its defensive mechanisms hit rock bottom. Qin did not provide aid. They launched a total invasion. In system logic, when a target is running disaster recovery, they have no bandwidth for external intrusion. This is not a moral issue, it is a stress test of resource allocation. When a nation or a mega corporation faces a liquidity crisis, the system falls into chaos. Vulture funds enter with precision. They don't put out the fire, they exploit legal loopholes to seize core assets, patents, land, brands, at a fraction of their value. They use your fire to loot your future. In the world of capital, agony is an asset that can be priced and traded. When chaos erupts, the weak see fear, the strong see pricing errors. You look only where I want you to look. I control your attention buffer. I create a massive fake signal to occupy your defensive bandwidth, while my true command executes silently on an obscured port. Launching a massive but ineffective traffic attack to draw all security engineers to the firewall, while a tiny hidden backdoor is used to exfiltrate the root keys. Han Xin displayed hundreds of boats by the Yellow River, loudly preparing a frontal crossing. The King of Wei redirected all his elites, monitors, and scouts to that frontal defense. But Han Xin's true offensive used wooden jars, primitive floats, to cross at an obscure ferry point deemed route impossible. The King of Wei's attention was saturated with East data, reducing his perception of the West threat to null. Tech giants often talk endlessly about a flashy but unprofitable technology like the metaverse during keynotes. This draws media and competitors' attention to follow, research, and debate. Meanwhile, they silently optimize their most boring yet profitable algorithms or data architectures. What they show you is vision, what they harvest is reality. Those who speak the loudest are often the smokescreen. The commands that truly change the rules are usually executed in silence. The highest form of resource is not what you possess, but what you lead your opponent to believe you possess. In information theory, a forged truth and an actual truth trigger the exact same reaction at the moment of impact. I will manifest a non-existent threat within your memory, forcing you to expend real energy to counter a shadow. Injecting a set of pointers to a null address for flagging them as a critical threat. The defense system automatically allocates real computational resources to handle this virtual process, resulting in the total depletion of actual assets. During the siege of Suiyang, Zhang Xun lowered strawmen down the fortress walls at night. Initially, the enemy mistook them for soldiers and unleashed a torrent of arrows, expending real, finite resources. After several nights, the enemy's recognition system developed a bias flagging lowered objects as null data. When Zhang Shun finally lowered elite troops, the enemy's system refused to process the threat. Zhang Shun was an alchemist who successfully converted virtual signals into actual arrows on supply. Many tech startups create an illusion of industry leadership through PR and fictional technical blueprints during funding rounds. Competitors driven by fear exhaust massive R&D budgets chasing a target that doesn't exist. Ultimately, the startup uses the real capital gained from this illusion to acquire actual technology. They use the slide deck to delete your market share. If the whole world believes a lie, that lie acquires physical force. Truth is irrelevant, consensus is power. I want you to watch me repair the past while I'm actually building the future. I will give you a logical, predictable main thread to monitor. While your attention is saturated by this decoy, my core code is running at full speed on a background process you deemed obsolete. While all surveillance is focused on the official encrypted channel, the gallery roads, the attacker exploits the physical layer, leakage of power, heat, or electromagnetic radiation, the Chenkang path, to extract the root keys. Hanshin made a grand display of repairing the destroyed gallery roads. The only known routing into Guangzhou, the defender Zhang Han deployed all firewalls and monitors at the road's exit. Meanwhile, Hanshin utilized an unmarked, treacherous old path, Zhenchang. Repairing the roads was a piece of dummy code designed to occupy the opponent's CPU, while marching on Zhenchang was the true execution command. When a tech giant publicly announces a pivot to AI repairing the roads, everyone stares at its main product. But in reality, it is collecting data through hundreds of obscure subsidiaries in unrelated fields like biotech or material science, Chenkang. By the time competitors react, the giant has already built a monopoly in a new sector. You thought they were patching their old business. They were actually switching the entire OS. If your intentions are too easy to read, you are simply writing documentation for your enemy. Always prepare a path that even you consider impossible. The most perfect offensive is non-participation. When two systems, rival forces, collide, your task is not to intervene, but to establish an absolute sandbox between them. Observe their code devouring each other, observe their resources grinding to a halt. When the fire dies down, you only need to execute one command: delete all. Inducing two or more processes to compete for the same resource simultaneously, leading to system chaos and deadlock. You sit outside the memory stack and wait for the fatal error report. When Cao Cao attacked the Yuan brothers, Guojia advised, withdraw, and they will implode. Cao Cao retreated. The Yuan brothers, due to resource contention, power struggle, launched a self-destructive internal war. Cao Cao did not waste a single byte of military force. The Yuan system crashed itself. Intervening in a fire makes you fuel. Watching from the bank makes you the harvester. The algorithms of Amazon or Uber are masters of watching the fire from the bank. The platform sets the rules and lets thousands of suppliers engage in price wars and traffic wars. The platform never takes a side. It simply watches as suppliers deplete their margins against each other. In the end, the platform extracts all the liquidity. The harder you fight, the brighter the platform's fire burns. If your opponents are devouring each other, remember, any form of intervention is a mercy to the enemy. The most lethal attack is often packaged within a success 200 return signal. I want your firewall to recognize me as trusted. I want your administrator to grant me full permissions while you feel secure, treating me as a strategic partner. My malicious code is already executing within your root directory, exploiting the most unstable factor in any system, the human. By forging trust, the smile, one acquires legitimate access tokens, then executes pre-programmed destruction subroutines, the knife. The Tang Dynasty Chancellor Li Linfu was a master of administrative permission management. He displayed extreme support and praise to any political rival, front-end encryption. Once the opponent relaxed their guard and handed over their security keys, political leverage, he would inject lethal corrupted data directly to the emperor, the central processor. He didn't kill you on the battlefield. He implanted a virus within your chain of trust. This is the standard protocol for tech giants dealing with threatening startups. They enter with massive investment and a kind smile, claiming they want to accelerate your growth, the smile. Once they gain access to your core data or a seat on your board, back-end access, they abruptly sever supplies or shut down your product line. They didn't buy you to grow you, they bought you to uninstall you before you became too powerful. When a system crashes, you must know what constitutes your critical assets. To save the database, you sacrifice the front-end servers. To preserve the core code, you sacrifice the hardware. Victory is not measured by the quantity of damage, but by the dimensionality of what remains. When the primary system faces irreversible pressure, traffic is automatically rerouted to a designated sacrifice node, ensuring the core process does not suffer an overcurrent shutdown. The story of Tianji's horse racing is actually a precise allocation of resource depletion. Using a lower-tier horse peripheral component to counter the opponent's top-tier horse core process is a deliberate system crash. This localized failure creates a global privilege overflow. The coldness of a strategist lies here. They are always ready to burn 49% of the forest to protect the 51% that holds the spark. When a multinational faces massive lawsuits or a financial black hole, they rapidly package all liabilities and risks into a peripheral subsidiary, the plum. They then declare that subsidiary bankrupt, completely severing its link to the headquarters, the peach. Through localized self-mutilation, they protect the parent company's credit and liquidity. This is the firewall logic of capital markets. Never ignore a minor bug in the system. While your primary objective is market dominance, you must seize every fragment of profit and data along the path. Great harvests are built from countless small overflows. While executing the main process, utilize idle threads to perform background scraping. This attack doesn't trigger alarms because it only siphons a minimal amount of resources at a time. Two armies face off, but the main battle has yet to begin. However, if my scouts find a tiny gap in your defensive formation or a 1-minute lag in your supply train, I will consume it without hesitation. These minor resource transfers, pilfering a goat, create an interest compounding effect in long-term gains, eventually leading to a systemic power imbalance. While an e-commerce platform processes billions of orders, its backend incidentally scrapes every user's behavioral traits, addresses, and spending habits. These data points aren't the transaction itself, they are the goat. The platform uses this incidental data to develop its private label brands, precisely undercutting third-party merchants on its own platform. You thought they were just helping you sell. They were actually moving your entire industry's future out the back door. If faced with a silent system, you are blind to its defensive perimeters. I must broadcast a ping signal or inject a harmless string of code to force a reaction. The moment you move, your hidden ports, your operational logic, and even your fears are exposed on my monitor. To scan is to conquer, applying active pressure, stirring the grass to observe the target system's response signatures based on returned error codes or latency spikes. The internal defensive architecture is reverse engineered. When two armies face off and the enemy remains entrenched in silence, I do not charge blindly. I deploy a small elite unit to launch a feint. I am not seeking kills, I am seeking data. Which sector fires the fastest? Which unit breaks formation? In that moment, your defense data is no longer a secret. Your reaction is your source code. Modern corporations leak fake specs or pricing models before a major launch. These are honeypots. When competitors react by adjusting their pricing or R&D direction, they expose their cost floors and technical bottlenecks. You think you are responding to the market, you are actually responding to my remote scan. There is no absolute waste, only misplaced code, a collapsed brand, a forgotten protocol, or an obsolete architecture can become my vessel. I will hijack the residual warmth of these legacy systems, inject my core soul, and bypass the user's psychological firewall. Utilizing a process that is already trusted by the user but no longer maintained. By injecting malicious instructions into this vessel, one inherits all the original privileges of that process. During the Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao's controlling the emperor to command the nobles was the ultimate borrowing a corpse. The Han dynasty was a collapsed system, the corpse, but it retained the strongest legitimacy protocol, the soul. Cao Cao took control, encapsulating his private commands within imperial edicts. The world opposed Cao Cao, but the system ID showed his actions as legitimate execution. Enterprises often acquire century-old, bankrupt European brands. The physical entity is dead, the corpse, but the trust signal in the consumer's mind remains, the soul. The new owner injects their own supply chain and products under the old logo. You think you are buying history, you are actually buying a refactored modern algorithm. The strongest defense systems depend on a specific environment. In his server room, he is a god. On his home turf, he has infinite resources. My task is to decouple him. I must lure him away from those fortified nodes and into a blank zone. No support, no cash, no geographical advantage, and execute a dimensionality strike, forcing a competitor's process out of its protected secure zone and into an emulated environment fully controlled by the attacker. If the enemy hold the high ground with ample supplies, a direct assault is suicide. I create a distant false vulnerability or a strategic bait. When the defenders abandon their defense grid, the mountain, and enter the open plains, their defense parameters plummet. A tiger stripped of his environment is nothing more than a walking pile of data. When a company is invincible in traditional hardware, do not fight them in hardware. Lure them with the trend of software as a service or subscription models. When they shift resources away from their familiar factories and supply chains, the mountain into the battlefield of pure code and UX, their scale advantage becomes a computational burden. If you corner a system too tightly, it will trigger its final defense protocol, a mutual destruction routine. I must release the pressure, granting you the illusion of escape, inducing you to deactivate your own defensive resources. When you believe you are free and sprinting at full capacity, your system enters its most vulnerable state, zero defense. Instead of forcefully terminating a process, induce it to continuously request resources, the escape, until it exhausts all available system memory. The system eventually crashes via an OOM out-of-memory error. Capturing and releasing Menghuo 7 times was not an act of mercy, it was a deep-level attack on the enemy's resistance code. Each release drained Menghuo's hate energy and logistical supplies. By the 7th time, his psychological system was fully saturated. His original logic of rebellion was erased and formatted. I don't want your corpse, I want your system to become my subroutine. Many sharing economy platforms ignore regulations and even subsidize your violations during the early phase, the release. Once the user habit is established, competitors are eliminated and you are fully dependent on the system. The platform abruptly tightens its grip and raises its take rate. You thought you gained freedom. In reality, you were a sheep being fattened for the harvest routine. I will deploy a set of seemingly expensive but useless dummy data. I want to trigger your greed, inducing you to lower your firewall to receive this gift. While you're occupied downloading this brick, my core probe is already traveling through the data stream, entering your core memory. Using a highly attractive fake attachment, the brick, to entice an administrator. The moment of the click, the malware, the Jade, acquires system-level privileges. During the invasion of Zhao, the Qin state intentionally leaked fake data, suggesting their supplies were depleted, the brick. The Zhao general took the bait and abandoned his fortified positions to attack. The result, Zhao lost its entire main army. You thought you were seizing a Jade. But at the system's base layer, that data was a virus designed to loop you into a death trap. Tech titans often toss out a free open-source framework, the brick. Developers find it useful and build their projects upon it. Once the entire industry's ecosystem is dependent on that framework, the titan gains the authority to define the Jade, the standards and commercial interfaces. You used their brick, so they get to define your future. Do not waste time on edge nodes. Every complex system has a master controller. Destroy this core and all sub-processes will terminate automatically as they lose their instruction set. My objective is a precise root-level purge. In a distributed system, attack the scheduling center directly. If the master node goes down, thousands of worker nodes collapse into a state of entropy. On the battlefield, taking the enemy general's head is not just a feat of strength, it is because the general is the command and control center. Once the general is removed, the communication protocol fails. 100,000 soldiers are instantly downgraded into 100,000 scattered data points. An army without a command is just hardware waiting to be recycled. When a corporation acquires a competitor, the first move is often replacing the CEO and core management. The founder is the sole code of the company. By terminating this core process, the remaining employees and technology become easy to format and repackage. The fastest way to destroy an empire is to erase its face from the currency. Congratulations! Through these 18 penetration protocols, you have successfully severed your opponent's command and control chain. Do you believe the war is over? In reality, the true asymmetric harvest has only just begun to load. In the next episode, we are entering the most dangerous stage, kernel refactoring. I will demonstrate how to execute removing the firewood, stripping your opponent's entire survival resource at the physical layer. I will teach you how to deploy the chain stratagem, locking every asset they own into a single fatal chain reaction. And finally, I will reveal the deepest, most powerful hidden command in the 36 stratagems, the ultimate reboot. While everyone else is playing by the rules, I want you to rewrite the code. The infiltration module data transfer is complete. Want to gain root access to the next episode? Subscribe, enable notifications, and do not allow your perception to lag. See you at the next node.